Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in once again to What Women Want Talk Radio. I'm Kristin West, and our other host, Judy Goss, is out on vacation. We love you, Judy. Thank you for having this show for us, and I'm so excited to get to share what's going on tonight. You know, everyone says you got to be out there. You got to get your name out there. You got to get your brand out there. And what does out there mean? You know, I know what out there means. It can mean wacky, but we don't want to be out there in a wacky way. We don't want to be out there in a non-strategic way. And, you know, I was thinking about this topic all week, and one thing that's so important is name recognition. And I was very blessed as a young kid. My mother taught me the value of having name recognition when you're in any kind of business, whether you're selling tractors or your artistic services or you're a big brand. You have to have name recognition. And so I was very grateful to have that as part of my young life. And today we're going to have two experts come on to really unpack that further with us, to show us how to get and to keep ourselves out there properly. We have Pamella Horton, founder of Maven's Connections, and Susan Gunelius, CEO of Key Splash Creative. We're going to be bringing them on in just a few minutes. And in the meantime, I want to thank all of you, our listeners. We've been on for 3 years, and we've hit over 800,000 downloads. But who's counting? We still get so excited every single show, and I know you do also. So if you haven't subscribed to us, please do it on iTunes or visit our archives on LA Talk Radio's website, latalkradio.com. You're going to hear some of our celebrity guests who have been with us recently, like former Today Show anchor Jenna Wolfe, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff Dr. Kristin Carlson, Gene Chatsky is coming in a couple of weeks, and who can forget O.J. Simpson prosecutor Marcia Clark, who was on our show a couple of times now. We're hoping she's going to come back and talk about her latest legal thriller, Snap Judgment. It's being released in a couple of weeks, I believe. So we always have captivating conversation with the most incredible guests. And you know what? Some of the best shows have been with women, you know, that you haven't even quite heard of yet, but they're each phenomenal in their very own ways and with their inspiring stories. And that's what we're about, what women want. And we find the best guests on the planet. Well, I started with the show back in January, and it's been an amazing ride for me. I'm so excited and honored that Judy has made me part of this adventure with her. I'm an actress and a producer, and now also, I guess, officially a screenwriter as well. I've produced several award-winning films, and I'm going to Las Vegas next week for the Hollywood Dreams International Film Festival, where I have Seeking Valentina, an award-winning short, playing. And I just learned today that the Fantastic Horror Film Festival has named my screenplay, Likeness, as a finalist. So it's been a busy day for me, and I'm really excited about that. Now, What Women Want Networking is the same name as our show, is hosting the Spirit of Women National Conference in Atlanta at the Westin Peachtree Plaza, October 7th through 8th. You want to go to spiritofwomenconference.com. Once again, spiritofwomenconference.com. And there are speakers and celebrities traveling from all across the country and even Canada who are going to blow your mind. And you know what? Here's the thing about this. It's a great value. You're going to get over $4,000 in value with the teaching and the coaching that's available there for less than $400 for a general admission ticket. Go buy your ticket now. They are selling quickly. They actually only have 22 VIP tickets left now. So they're going to be closing the red velvet rope after they sell out. And trust me, these tickets are going to sell out. If you love the show, if you love the energy and the vibe of our guests, you've got to get in on this. So go check out spiritofwomenconference.com. I am so pleased tonight to have Pamella Horton on. Pamella is a corporate culture consultant, employee engagement, well-being, and lifestyle employee benefit specialist, and host of the Calling the Real You podcast. Pamella is the co-founder of Maven's Connections, a corporate concierge company devoted to employers and their employees, connecting them with revolutionary employee engagement resources, wellness, and lifestyle programs for better health, increased morale, and productivity. She's also the creator of the Access Freedom Method, which quickly helps you identify the root cause of what is holding you back from living to your fullest potential, being fully self-expressed, and performing at your peak. Pamella, welcome so much back to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Kristin. I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. And how are you?
You know, I'm having a great day because I'm here on the show and we're talking about a really important topic, which is getting ourselves out there. Now, Pamella, here's the thing about you. You when you named your business Maven's Connections, it's true, you are a maven. How did you get yourself out there?
Well, I tend to be what I would call, and I'm not even sure I like the term anymore, but a bit old school. It was all about creating the relationships and maintaining them in an authentic way, not being a prodigal daughter returning when I needed something, but really trying to do my best and remain in people's lives and know what it is that was going on in their lives so that I can comment and contribute in ways that were beneficial for everyone involved.
I'm so excited that you brought in the idea of the relationship early. Sometimes we ignore the power of relationships or not even tap into them and creating those relationships. How does relationships relate to branding and marketing? How do you do that? Is it, I know you said you're old school. Is it a phone call? Is it a tweet? How does one do that without seeming fake or ingenuine?
Yeah, I think that, I know really from experience that when you're putting yourself out there, when you're branding yourself, and you're moving forward in trying to do your best to be real, right? So you want people to know who you really are, and you want people to understand that everyone is on the same page, whether we know it or not. And I don't think I'm answering your question. I'll just be completely vulnerable right now. Please ask the question again, because I really want to be able to give that response to the audience.
Well, I guess what I was driving at was, sometimes when we are networking and trying to create the relationships, it seems kind of forced. How do we come across as more genuine when it comes to marketing and branding? Is there a silver bullet there?
Thank you for narrowing it down for me. When you're networking, when you're at events, when you're in corporate meetings or networking meetings in the community, I think I don't think I know. The first thing is to not just, and I respectfully say this, vomit information all over everyone. And I know that might be a harsh term or not a very nice term, but I'm being authentically real when I use that. You want to be there for people. You want to be open and accessible for people. And when they know that you are there listening to them, when they know that you are truly engaging, and it's very difficult in today's world to be engaged because many of us are actually burnt out. And when we're burnt out, we're stressed, and it's very difficult to be engaged at a peak performance. But when you are really involved with somebody, giving them your all, listening in without trying to interrupt, that comes across, and they remember that, or they remember that you asked to offer something up that could help them versus trying to sell them something, or just even leaving the fact that you are an insurance salesperson or whatever the case may be out of the conversation altogether and making it about the other person that you're with. I think I know that is something that works very effectively.
Pamella, I appreciate your candor about the information vomit, because I think so many times we put up those walls, or those tidal waves of information come at us, and we don't know how to process it immediately. So I do appreciate your candor about that. What do you feel is the most underutilized way to market and to brand yourself? Is there something that we're not accessing enough of?
When I mentioned the words old school before, can you remember the last time that you received an actual physical thank you card in the mail after a meeting or after doing something nice for someone or whatever? Do you recall receiving an actual physical card?
It has been decades, and I'm a millennial, so it's been decades. It may have been in my teens.
And I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it, or that I'm not even recommending I don't work for a card company. I'm not an affiliate of a card company or anything like that. I received a thank you card in the mail a couple of weeks ago, and I frequently will send a handwritten note or something to that effect. That's a connection. That is a human connection. It's removing us from our phones. It's removing us from the technology, and there needs to be a fine balance. There needs to be a comprehensive balance without over tipping on one area and under tipping another, and that I think breeds a different way of doing business together.
One of the pitfalls of technology I think you're speaking to is this ability to automate vast amounts of information, send out 1,000 tweets a day on a schedule based on analytics, and it really ignores and undervalues the human component. And you deal with the human component of businesses in your own business. Can you tell us just a little bit more about the services that you offer to companies?
Thank you. Yes, we work with multiple corporations going in and consulting either as a consultant and regarding employee engagement. We help employers alleviate and or lessen costs that are related to absenteeism, healthcare related costs. And in return, we help their employees become happier. And, what I'm about to share with you now actually can go back to the previous question as well in terms of what can we do something that is different. And that is to do your very best to be happy. We help companies foster and nurture happy employees. Because when an individual is happy, and you can be looking at it from a perspective of a manager or a boss or a company owner, where you could be taking this perspective as an individual or a solopreneur, not entrepreneur. When we're happy, we actually work better with others, and we tend to be more creative, and we fix problems versus complaining about them. And so when we show up in that way, things become easier, and people start to talk about us, and people start to elevate us, they will elevate you. And so that's what we do inside the companies in terms of our services. We help create a happy environment and foster happy people.
The hashtag today on Twitter was "Be Positive" in 4 words, and I was actually very glad to see that today, especially in light of everything that's going on in current events. And I think what you're talking to and speaking to is something very real, is that in order to really get quality products, you have to invest in the quality of life of people. And I'm glad that you're doing that with your business. Do you see businesses also wanting to be more socially conscious these days? Is that a priority for them in their branding and in their identity to the public?
If it isn't, I highly recommend that they begin to take a look at that, because the most successful businesses in the years to come, because the employer platform, the employer canvas is swiftly changing, I definitely invite everyone to consider increasing their level of humanitarian and social justice and ways of giving back and being purpose-driven, because those companies are the companies that are going to be the most successful, those that give back not only to their internal customers, but also to their external customers, companies that allow their staff to volunteer at least 8 hours a month within the community, but the employer covers that cost. And I hope I'm answering your question by offering this up. If they're not considering it, I highly recommend that they do.
You are answering my question. You're challenging me to think about things as well, and it's not just large businesses. It's not your blue chip stock businesses. It's also solopreneurs. We had Marissa Lewis on last week. She's a fashion designer here in Los Angeles, and every single fashion show she does, she has a charity that she sponsors, and she works vigorously with the Downtown Women's Shelter here in Los Angeles. And her story was so inspiring, and I'm sure that people are drawn to her business because of that attitude of gratitude and giving back to the community. Now, there is a thing that's gone on in the past, and I wouldn't say it's just exclusive to this year, and I definitely want Susan to weigh in to this when we bring her on in a few minutes. But we have big brands like Campbell Soup and others taking and doing advertising with socially relevant themes and taking risks, and sometimes they get applauded, and then we have situations like Pepsi where they've seemed to miss the mark. If a company really wants to do take on a socially relevant hot button topic, is there a way to do it effectively? What's a responsible corporation need to consider when they're getting into that cultural foray? Hello?
I was on mute. I'm here. I'm with you. I'm answering away, but I was on mute.
It's okay. It's okay.
So
that was a big question. I was like, oh my goodness.
I'm still with you, Kristin. No, if a company is multicultural and within multiple countries, the first thing I would recommend, obviously, is knowing what's offensive and what's not offensive in each individual countries. But if you are a domestic company here in the States, I think the first thing to do is really, and again, I don't think, if you can't tell, I'm trying to change a habit, and that is, I usually say I think when I know of a specific topic. So you're witnessing the process of me changing a habit right now. What I know that company should do is really incorporate and invite their employees to be part of a community or a small committee of sorts, and begin to just ask questions and have the committee be very diverse and have open-ended conversations and allow for a very safe space, fishbowl kind of experience. And if they're uncomfortable doing that themselves, then absolutely investigate, research a proper third-party firm that can help you really create some meaningful dialogue. And what is it that your employees want to address and or support and contribute to? So that actually would be the first thing that I would recommend that a company do.
Well, I feel that's a very well balanced answer, and I know that Susan is going to weigh in here for a moment, and I'm going to bring Susan Gunelius on. Susan is the president and CEO of Key Splash Creative, a marketing and communications company and branding consultancy, and she's the founder and editor-in-chief of WomenOnBusiness.com, a blog dedicated to helping women succeed in the business world. Susan has authored 10 books about marketing, branding, social media, copywriting, and technology, and her 11th book, The Ultimate Guide to Email Marketing, will be released in May of 2018. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Kristin.
I am so excited to have you on, and I'm so excited to have you on with Pamella for this topic of branding and marketing and how to be out there. Now, you have over 20 years of marketing experience, and you've also written 10 marketing-related books. Is there something that everyone still does wrong decade after decade when it comes to marketing and branding?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you this, it's one that I've never had before, and I'm really excited to answer it. I would say that what people do, and even companies, businesses do wrong with branding is they forget the 3 basic rules of branding, the 3 steps to build a brand, which are consistency, persistence, and restraint. Consistency in that all of your messages, everything you do, all of the consumer experiences you create related to your brand should be consistent with your brand promise. Persistence in that brands aren't built over in a day. You can't give up. And then restraint, you can't expand your brand or extend it into areas that are, again, going back to number one, inconsistent with your brand promise. So I think that is the biggest mistake when you have not clearly identified a focused brand promise and you aren't following those 3 core steps to brand building.
I love that because it's very simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the most evasive. I want to tag back into this conversation that I started with Pamela about socially relevant themes. We have Campbell's Soup. They had a successful run with their ads featuring same-sex couples. Pepsi was not so successful with Kendall Jenner. How does a brand get into socially relevant content in a way that makes sense for them? Pamela had her ideas about including the people at the company. How do you feel about that?
Well, if I were in charge of the marketing and branding for that company, my first question would be why? Mm-hmm. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to be a part of this social movement? Are we just trying to jump on the coattails of a buzzworthy topic? Or is there a real reason that is related to our brand promise that we are taking on this topic and bringing it into what we do on a daily basis and what messages we put out there to consumers? So once you have the answer to that question, what is the purpose? And is it consistent with our brand promise? Is it consistent with the focus of our business? Then you can determine yes or no, this is something that we should pursue or not. Certainly, when you're tackling a topic that can be controversial, something that is in the news, I would absolutely recommend doing some market research first if you're a large company and you have the budget, because these are things that you need to make sure that you understand consumers' perspectives and how do they feel about your brand being a part of this possibly controversial subject. So no, it's not a decision that's made quickly. It shouldn't be, at least, and it should be extremely purposeful.
So that definitely speaks to restraint, but also having the persistence, I would argue, to really put some resources behind studying that. Well, I'm glad that we came together on that and had some discussion about that. Now, Susan, you have worked for big brands like AT&T. Like I said before, you've written books. I remember in my early life, in my first forays in marketing, I was actually a marketing intern with Miramax at one point. I was actually a person that would sit quietly in the back of screening rooms in movie theaters and record when an audience would laugh during a movie. That was my first ever marketing job ever, was doing target market research and finding the target markets. And I remember, we went through guerrilla marketing, and marketing seems to come in ways, content marketing, and now we're into engaging with influencers. Is there a next big wave that we need to be prepared for?
I think the important thing to remember is not so much the tools of marketing, but the strategy of marketing. The tools will come and go. So we have content marketing, social media marketing, reaching out to influencers because we now live in this digital space where we have access to these kinds of conversations and people and communities. But I wouldn't get so hung up on what the next thing is. And if I were to say what that next thing is, it's going to be mobile, artificial intelligence, that kind of thing. But going back to the point, the theories don't change. The ways that we connect with consumers on a psychological, physical level, the if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the way that we connect emotionally with the consumer to motivate them to buy, and building a brand is an important part of that. Those things don't change because humans haven't changed that significantly in terms of what motivates us to buy. Now, if suddenly mankind does a 180 and starts thinking extremely differently, then the way that we market will change. But the tools come and go. We just learn how to adapt the theories and strategies of marketing, which certainly do evolve, but we just adapt them to what the tools are that are available to us at any moment in time.
What you're saying is so true, because you can't, like you said with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're not having enough to eat or your kids need school supplies, you're not going to be able to buy a Lamborghini or a Maserati. That's probably not in your future if you're just struggling to get by. So it's important that you know who your business is and you know who your target market is. Is there a way to really narrow in that target market? Is it a process of research, or how does one go about doing that?
Well, if we back up to when you're developing a product, products and services for your brand, for example, you start at the very beginning. The reason you're developing this product or service is to solve some kind of a problem for consumers. What is the user's problem that this product or service is going to solve? How is it going to make their life better? So from there, you kind of can determine where the next steps are in terms of branding it, and who then is the target audience, who is going to want to purchase this. And the original audience that you create a product or service for might end up being just one of many target audiences. Your ultimate product or service could end up appealing to a wide variety of people for different reasons. And who they are, their demographic profile, their psychographic profile, their behavioral profile, that's what puts them into different target segments of your audience. If you already have a product or service and you don't know who your target audience is, then yes, certainly research is a great way to start. Certainly surveys to find out what some of these demographic, psychographic, and behavioral characteristics are. And then also with social media, we have access to conversations and just so much data that you can use to try to figure out who people are and try to segment them in that way.
It's interesting because when I was actually looking at the analytics of my Twitter profile a few days ago, the market demographic that is really interested in my feed is not exactly what I expected it to be. So I've been having to engage with that. And it's interesting what information can be available from social media. And I guess, it used to be in your specialty really, well, you have a broad base of knowledge, but many of your books are about content marketing and social media marketing. It used to be the zeitgeist was, you need as many followers as possible. And the conversations kind of moved to engagement, who's engaging with the content that you're offering. Is there a happy medium? Should a brand be focusing on one more than the other? Does it change?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Certainly, quality always trumps quantity. It's better to have 1,000 followers who are engaged, share your content with their own audiences, want to buy from you, want to talk about your brand, than it is to have 10,000 people who click the follow button and never pay attention to you again. Now, with that said, it's also important to try to continually expand your audience, just like you would do offline. You want to try to get your brand in front of wider and broader audiences so you can hopefully connect with more of your target audience. Social media allows you to cast a very, very wide net, and then the trickier part is narrowing it down into that engaged audience of people who will hopefully advocate your brand and buy word of mouth marketing is worth its weight in gold. However, when you're building a social media following, not as many people will click the follow button if 1,000 people are already following you than they will if 10,000 people are already following you. It's something called social proof. Basically, if 10,000 people are following you, you probably have something important to say. You probably are an authoritative, trustworthy person who knows what you're talking about. Is that true? No, because someone could have bought followers. They could be using an automated tool to get followers. But it's the psychological perception that someone with a lot of followers must have something important to say. So when you look at it from that perspective, yes, you do need to build your follower count just to be able to create the domino effect of that perpetual getting more and more people to follow you so that you can, again, as I said, continue to cast that wide net that gives you the opportunity to get in front of the people who are your target audience. Yes, you supplement those efforts of getting new followers with targeted marketing initiatives, advertising, promotions, et cetera, to try to build that targeted following. But really a complete social media strategy and plan would do both, would increase quantity and quality.
Right now I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed in my mind because my phone is not working. And I'm like, did I follow that person or not? Because that number, that social proof is true. If they don't have 10,000 followers or they have less followers than you sometimes ignore the content, even if the content is stellar. And I can't tell you, being a person who's active on Twitter, and this goes for Instagram or anywhere else on social media, you may miss someone very valuable. I've seen, name directors who've won awards at prestigious film festivals who only have, maybe 100, 200 followers because they really haven't put a lot of time into their Twitter feed, but they have one. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't know it if I didn't go searching for them because I wasn't paying attention to who was garnering what awards at what festivals. So it's interesting what you're talking about. Now, I want to bring Pamella back on and have a sort of a roundtable right now about all of this amazing information that we're getting out. So one thing, I think, turning back to small businesses, especially people who are just starting up, people that don't have the name recognition that they want yet, I think there's a lot of confusion about advertising, marketing, sales, PR, what the difference is, because they are different, they're not all one thing, and where people should be spending their time and their resources. So Pamella, what do you feel is important for the small business owner, the solopreneur?
We forgot one other item. A lot of small startups don't have the funding or the budgets to actually be able to invest in those resources and services. So if we can just throw that into the mix too, because a lot of it's difficult when you're first starting out and you don't have the resources behind you to actually invest in someone to do statistics or research to find out what your target audience is, et cetera. And that's where I would like to really recommend falling very heavily upon collaboration and joint venturing with people that make the most sense to collaborate with and joint venture with. People who already have a larger following than you, or a following if you don't have one at all, and really create a mutually beneficial relationship so that there is an even exchange of some sort of energy, if you will. If it's currency, great, but you define what that currency is. And when you're able to align yourself with someone that is not only a fit energetically, authentically, philosophically, it just feels good to be around them. They then in turn elevate you and begin to be your mouthpiece, and then that's where that whole marketing by or referral sources are so important.
Susan, Pamella brings up a great point about solopreneurs and small businesses not necessarily having the funding to buy into, everything all at once. What do you think about that? Is there a way to be smart about it or to prioritize effectively what you need when?
Absolutely. I work with a ton of startups with no budget, but the tricky part is my answer would be different depending on what kind of business you have. So I'm going to give an answer, but it might not be what I would tell every one of your listeners, depending on what kind of business they have. All right, you're a small business owner. You desperately need to bring in cash. You need to get some sales because you might not have enough money to pay your rent next month. This is a very real situation that too many small business owners are in on a monthly basis. So what do you do? And we're going to assume for this scenario that you're a new business. Well, you're going to invest in some highly targeted advertising. You're going to start investing time because while you might not think you have any time, time is really the only thing that you have to work with right now because you don't have any money. So you're going to start attempting to surround your consumer with branded experiences so they can not just learn about you, become aware of your brand and recognize your brand, but also self-select how they want to interact with your brand. Where do you go today to find out about a new company or you need to buy a product? You go to Google. You don't pick up a phone book. You might ask a friend, but hopefully with the strategy that I'm giving you, your friend will have already heard about your small business. They go to Google. Your business needs to be there. This isn't an overnight fix unless you invest in expensive white hat, which means not quote unquote illegal or against Google's rules. You need to invest in search engine optimization, which can be expensive. So to get good SEO help. So then what you're going to do, since you can't afford good SEO help, is you're going to start a blog immediately. You're going to start publishing useful, interesting, meaningful content that your audience, your target audience, is going to be interested in. You're going to start reaching out to other websites and blogs in your industry that your target audience probably reads or spends time on or might know about. You're going to offer to write guest posts there that link back to your blog because Google takes every incoming link, adds it to your ranking in search results, and it means your site's more authoritative, and it helps get your web pages into Google searches higher up than they would otherwise. You're going to spend time on social media, Facebook, Twitter, interacting, engaging, trying to build a following. You are going to start reaching out to influencers in your industry that your target audience might already know of and listen to, people who have the eyes and ears of your target audience. You're going to start engaging with them, getting on their radar screens. And hopefully at some point they will talk about your brand or tweet something that you've written. Basically, you're building this social proof and you're building all of these roads back to what I refer to as your core online branded destination, which is your website powered by your blog. Google loves fresh content. Every new blog post gives Google another chance of finding your website and sending people to it. And so through this strategy, while you're not going to be able to get immediate sales from it, although you never know, there have been companies that have gotten hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales through a single Facebook image. This was a travel company that did this several years ago. So you never know what could happen. But basically, you're using this social and content marketing process as a long-term way to build organic, sustainable growth. And then at the same time, through your very highly targeted advertising, it could be offline and local media, it could be Facebook advertising. Facebook is amazing for especially business to consumer products. And you can do some incredibly targeted advertising on it. So that advertising will help to build the short-term sales. And there's so much more. You should be building your list, everything. The money is in your list these days. So you need to be offering some freebies, promotions, anything to build your email subscriber list and start investing in email marketing so that you can push people from the awareness stage through what we refer to as the marketing funnel all the way down to where they ultimately convert and make a purchase and become brand advocates and loyal repeat customers. So there's so many different ways to go about it, but those are kind of your three key pieces: the content marketing and social media for your long-term, advertising short-term, and then building your list. The power is in your list for your email marketing.
Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Well, it's amazing, Susan. You've given us a wealth of information, and I'm thinking about it all and how it relates to me. And I know, that I was in college when Facebook was new. And it's amazing the proliferation of social media channels: Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, Live Me now, live streaming video, Periscope. I mean, I'm sure I don't have enough fingers for everything that people could be on. How does someone prioritize what social media channels are relevant for them?
It depends on where your target audience spends time. So no small business can be everywhere. There's not enough time, and there's not enough money to pay people to do it for you. So you do absolutely have to pick and choose. Where am I going to invest my time and my resources? So that takes a little bit of research on your own time. You don't have to pay anything for this research. You just need to spend some time talking to people, reaching out and asking questions. Who are your competitors? Where are they on social media? Where are they getting some traction? Where do they have a lot of followers who are engaged with them? That's a great way to do it, because you can target their audiences in Facebook ads with Facebook advertising. So it's a great way to start. So figure out where they're spending time, your target audience, and you need to be there too.
That's an interesting idea, and very. I've used that advice myself, so I know the power of that. Now, Pamella, you're very much about the authentic message, which I applaud very much. How do you think, when we're picking and choosing and putting ourselves out there, how do we keep that authentic message going and being on message, which is a big thing, but at the same time there's a priority and a zeitgeist right now on being real? How do we strike that balance?
By getting centered and grounded with yourself, connecting with yourself. If you're a leader, if you are a role model, if you're a CEO of a large company, a solopreneur, anyone, if you are interacting with others, it's really imperative that you create a relationship with yourself first and foremost that is loving and respectful, because how you treat yourself is how others is going to treat you, and how you treat yourself allows you to be authentic or inauthentic. And the process of, if you can just give yourself the gift of the rule of 20-20-20, which is usually 20 minutes, every 20 minutes, take a break for 20 seconds, look at something different, and focus at least 20 seconds away. Well, while you're doing that, that is a beautiful and perfect time throughout the day to breathe in to yourself and get grounded and centered. And that prolongs your authenticity, not only in the work that you're doing right then and there in that moment, but it carries out in every interaction that you have, whether it's through email, on social media, or in person or over the phone.
I think what you're talking about is so important, because sometimes when we rely on automation too much, or we're trying to cultivate and maintain a certain message and repetition, we create sort of grooves in our mind about, okay, I've got to get the message out that I'm this, and this. It can stifle our creativity if we don't take a break from it. So I think what you're saying there is incredibly valuable. Now, Susan, is there a way to incorporate creativity more? Is there a way to I don't want to say safely create, because that sounds weird, but is there a way to create with restraint? You talked about restraint. Is there a way to push the boundaries without being, excuse the pun, too out there?
Well, I think to Pamela's point of being on message, remember, it's that brand consistency. So in terms of a personal brand, then yes, that whole thought of being authentic and being real and being truthful is very, very important, because if you present yourself as someone that you're not, well,